The cargo hold reeked of ozone and fear. Mira's eyes fluttered open to find herself suspended in a translucent containment field, her body hovering 2 feet above a cold metal floor. Through the flickering energy barrier, she could see dozens of other capsules, each holding a different species, scales, feathers, chitinous plates, all unconscious. She was the only human. The last thing Mira remembered was walking home from the observatory where she worked. A brilliant light, a sound like reality tearing, then nothing. The ship lurched and her capsule began to move along a conveyor system. Through the viewport, she glimpsed a world that defied comprehension. A planet covered in massive trees that reached toward 3 separate moons, their bark shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Structures carved into the trunk cities suggested intelligence, civilization, the simian dominion. She'd heard whispers of it in fringe, scientific circles, a species of hyper-evolved primates who had conquered 17 systems. Through brutal efficiency and an unsettling intelligence that mirrored humanity's own dark potential, her capsule descended through atmospheric processing, and within minutes, she found herself in what could only be described as an arena. The containment field dissolved and Mira stumbled onto crimson sand. Around her, thousands of alien apes filled the tiered seating, their faces a disturbing mixture of primate and something else. Something calculating. A massive figure entered the arena floor. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in silver-streaked fur that caught the triple moonlight. His eyes were amber, intelligent, and fixed on her with an intensity that made her blood run cold. Human, his voice rumbled, translated through a device at his throat. I am Karan, 10th Prime of the Dominion. You have been selected for the trial of weakness. Mira's fists clenched. I didn't ask to be here. None do, Karan replied. That is the point. We gather the weak from across the stars and test them. Those who survive earn their freedom. Those who fail. He gestured to dark stains on the sand. The crowd roared in anticipation. What they didn't know, what Karan couldn't possibly know, was that Mira wasn't just any astronomer. She was a competitive mixed martial artist, a rock climber, and carried the genetic legacy of a species that had clawed its way from prey to apex predator on a world that had tried desperately to kill them for millions of years. The trial began. They released creatures into the arena, 6-legged predators with acidic venom, mechanical constructs designed to test reflexes, environmental hazards that would have killed most species instantly. Mira moved like water, using the arena's geography, turning her perceived weaknesses into advantages. Where the apes expected panic, they found calculated fury. Where they expected pleading, they heard defiant silence. She didn't just survive, she dominated. Karan watched from the Prime's platform, his expression unreadable. As the final trial ended, Mira standing victorious over a combat drone 3 times her size, something shifted in the arena's atmosphere. The cheering stopped. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Impossible, one of the council members hissed. No human has ever— Silence, Karan commanded. He descended into the arena, approaching Mira with cautious respect. Up close she could see the scars that marked his fur, the weight of command in his posture. You are no ordinary specimen, he said quietly. And you're about to learn why that matters, Mira replied, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. What happened next would echo across the Dominion for generations. Karan did something unprecedented. He turned to the assembled council and spoke words that had never been uttered in the arena's 3-century history. I invoke the right of recognition. This species has proven their worth. The human is not prey, she is predator. The arena erupted in chaos. Some apes roared in approval, others in outrage. But Karan raised his hand and silence fell like a blade. I have studied 47 species before they entered our trials, he continued, his voice carrying across the stadium. I researched this one called human more than any other. Do you know what I found? He gestured to Mira. Their planet tried to kill them with ice ages, supervolcanoes, predators with teeth longer than your fingers. They had no claws, no natural armor, no venom. They were weak. He paused, letting the word hang in the air. So they invented all of it. They created armor, weapons, tools. They domesticated fire itself. They turned wolves into companions and enemies into allies. When their world pushed them to the edge of extinction, they pushed back harder. They didn't just survive, they thrived. They reached for the stars not because they were strong, but because they refused to be weak. Corin turned back to Mira, and in his amber eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected, respect tinged with fear. "We have made a grave error," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "We assumed that species who looked fragile were weak. But humans are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, not because of their strength, but because of their refusal to accept limitation." He extended his massive hand toward her. "I offer you not just freedom, but alliance. Teach us what you know. Help us understand the strength that comes from adversity." Mira looked at his hand, then at the thousands of alien faces watching her. She thought about every human who had ever been underestimated, every person who had been counted out and came back stronger. She took his hand. "First lesson," she said, her voice carrying across the silent arena. "Never judge a species by how they look. Judge them by how they fight back." The arena exploded in a cacophony of roars, some fearful, some exhilarated, all of them knowing that something fundamental had shifted. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy, and the universe would never be the same. Corin smiled, an expression both terrifying and genuine. "The Dominion has conquered through strength. Perhaps it is time we learned about resilience." As Mira stood in the crimson sand, bloodied but unbroken, she realized that her abduction had become something else entirely. Humanity's introduction to a galaxy that had no idea what was coming. They had taken one human as a curiosity, a specimen to test. They would learn, as Earth had learned millions of years ago, that you don't hunt humans, you survive them. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you learn to stand beside them.